So now on Sadi Gimel Omid Beis, and we're talking about an animal that got some sort of an injury in its testicles. And the question is, do we view the testicles now as detached from the body? If they're detached from the body, since they're each a limb, that's called Aver Min HaChai. So that's the sugya we're doing now. And the Gemara says on the top here of Tzadi Gimel Amid Beis, Midelo Baryon, there's no way you could heal these testicles. They are going to decay and they're going to degenerate. And therefore, they're not really part of the circulatory system, about the vitality of the animal. Vahani Evim Nachai Ninhu. And therefore, they should be categorized and defined as Evim Nachai. So that's one Mandiyama who says that you're not allowed to eat these detached testicles. But Mandashari, Midaloka Masarchan, they're not decaying. Why aren't they decaying while they're in the scrotum? Apparently, they're still getting some sort of blood. Hanichiyusa ispuhu. They have life in them. So even though they're partially detached, but they're still alive, and therefore it's not Eivim Minachai. Eivim Minachai means when you detach a limb from a live animal. V'idach, I mean, after all, L'chora, the Mandiyama who says it's mutter has a clear-cut proof from the fact that it's not decaying. So he says, no, there's another reason why it's not decaying. Hi, the loka mesarchan. The reason why it's not decaying is the loka shalit be avira. I guess the air has all sorts of elements in it, maybe germs or whatever, and that would cause the delay, the decay. But here, since the testicles are totally enveloped by the scrotum and protected from the air, that's why they're not decaying. But really, it's not part of the body of the animal. V'idach, hi deloberion. What are you telling me? You're telling me that it's past the red line, it's not going to regenerate? No, that's not a proof. Why? Because it's weak, and therefore it doesn't regenerate. So if it needs a certain power to heal and regenerate. We are mekil, and we allow you to eat testicles that are detached, and we don't consider it Evim Nachai. However, that's because we have the tradition and the minhagim of Eretz Yisrael. But you, Rav Shemen, at lo techo mishum al titos torasimecha. Here in Bavel, they are machmir, and they have the custom that prohibits the eating of detached testicles. Okay. Now, we spoke about the membranes that are saturated with blood. And now we're going to talk about the membrane that surrounds the testicles and it's full of blood. Omar Marbar of Ashihani Be de Gadya, so the testicles of a goat, of a young goat, Ad Tlosin Yomin Sharian below Klipa. After the birth of this little kid, this young goat, we wait 30 days. And during that 30-day period, we're going to permit the eating of these young goats' testicles without peeling off the membrane, but after the 30 days, then we have a problem. And we're going to have to see how we solve this problem. The blood vessels in the membrane do not develop during the first 30 days of the animal's life. Hence, one may salt the testicles, cook them, and you don't have to cut them or peel off the membrane. However, once the goat reaches its 30 days, now we have to see, is it developed to the point where there's lots of blood in the blood vessels of the membrane? How do we check it out? What's the litmus test? Iazaron asurin. If they are producing semen, then you know it's already developed. And then it's got blood vessels that are full of blood. You're gonna have to peel off the membrane. But ilozaran charin, if it's still pre-producing semen, it doesn't produce semen, then it's mutter. How the heck in the world am I supposed to know whether or not the testicles of this young goat after 30 days is producing semen or not? So again, what we're going to learn now, again, if you have the ability to check this out on Google or something or AI, I'd be curious. I didn't get a chance to do this, whether this is absolutely what we'd say scientifically, Eisgehalt. The Gemara says the Isle Shurke Sumke Asirin. Shurke are streaks. Okay, so you check out, the testicles and you see where there are red streaks there. If their sumke is red, so if they have red streaks, which means that the blood vessels are very visible because they're full of blood, that means that it's already producing semen. But let's say Shuke Sumki Shari. So I don't know anything about these red streaks. And frankly speaking, I never saw the testicles of a young goat after Shechita, so it's foreign to me. Umtzi. Okay, now we have a list of 3 places in the animal, 3 locations where the blood vessels are full of blood, and therefore the normal process of salting would not be sufficient to get rid of the blood. You're going to have to cut it and then salt it. Number 1 is umtze, that's a raw piece of meat. Number 2 is bay, is testicles. And number 3 is mizrake, that's the blood vessels in the neck. They're full of blood. So now we say the following. Pligi bar Rav Acha v'Ravina. Now we have a rule that whenever there's a machlokas, and there are lots of them between Rav Acha and Ravina, we always paskin like Ravina. Why? Because he's mekil. And we have a principle that we always accept the kula of Ravina. But these three, cases are the exception to the rule. We pass like Ravina. We're going to pass like Rav Acha lekula instead of Ravina because he's the machmir. Hilchasa kirav Acha lekula. So it seemed that even though there's an unusual volume of blood in the blood vessels of these 3 cases, nevertheless, we can salt them. These 3 types of meat contain deposits of blood that are not yet absorbed in the flesh. Any blood that remains after. All right, this is. Oh, remember we said that roasting would substitute for salting. And Rav Acha and Ravina will soon disagree whether roasting, let's say on coals we said, would be sufficient to allow you to eat the meat, to remove its blood. Umta di asmik, a piece of raw blood that turned red because of the blood vessels. Chatocha umolcha is afilu k'terinami shapridon. So in the case of a raw piece of meat that is red because of the ruptured blood vessels and the intense volume of blood, it's not enough just to salt it, but you can cut it and then salt it and then and then cook it in a pot. Eat it in your children. Now, roasting could be one of 2 things. Either you put it directly on the coals, or talye nami b'shpude de'iv dama. You could roast it on a shpud. A shpud is a spit. Remember the old rotaries, the barbecues from our early childhood? And that's a substitute for roasting. And doiv dama means it draws out the blood. agure. However, 1 second. Oh, okay. So let me just backtrack for my own. So we're talking now about umtza the asmic. We're talking about a raw piece of meat that's full of blood. It's red. And first, we're saying that a combination of slicing it and salting it is sufficient. And then it's mutter. Number two, roasting it on a spit is also mutter, because that's considered like the combination of slicing and salting. What about hot coals? So again, I didn't know the word for it. I still don't know the word for it. We're going to use the word roasting, but it's a different kind of roasting, and it's not identical with your normal roasting on a spit. Pligi bar of achav ravina chad omer mishav she'ivele v'chad omer mitzmach somsile. What is the impact of the coals? And we have two extremes over here. According to one opinion, the heat of the coals draws out the blood, and it's exactly like roasting it on a spit, and therefore you're allowed to eat it. According to the other opinion, just the other extreme, the heat causes the meat to shrivel, and as a result, it retains its blood. It won't give up its blood, and therefore it's us. And that machlokes between Rav Acha and Ravina will apply not only to raw red meat, but also to bay and to mizraki, to the blood of the testicles and the blood of the neck. But in all these cases, it seems that we paskin like Rav Acha, Lakula, and therefore, la halacha, it seems that in these three cases, you would be allowed to roast them on a coal, roasting, for lack of a better word, on hot coals, and that would draw out the dam. Okay. Now, what about the head of the animal? We say that the membrane inside the brain of the animal is full of blood. Is Reisha Bekivsha, let's say you want to, now this sounds like a crazy thing, but I'll try to explain why you would want to do such a thing. You take the head of the animal and you bury it in hot ashes in order to get rid of its hairs. And now we're going to have three different scenarios to determine whether or not in that process of the head of the animal in hot ashes, whether or not it removes the dam. If he has the head of the animal vertical, then doyev dama v'sharet. The process of ashes, the heat of the ashes, I guess the ashes are still burning, will remove the dam. Atzdadim, let's say he tips over the head onto one side, and he puts it onto the hot ashes, the burning ashes. Mikvah kofi v'yasa, it has the opposite effect, and it congeals, and the blood is stuck inside forever and ever. So the head is also, get rid of the head. The third case is osve anechire. He takes the head of the animal, and instead of being straight, right, or being placed on the side, he turns it onto the ashes, nose first. Dotspe mide shari v'ilo osr. The assumption is that the nostrils are all closed up. and they will block the dam from coming out. And therefore, the ashes are not going to do the job of getting the dam out. But if he inserts something to hold open the nostrils so that the blood will come out, then the heat of the ashes will remove all the blood. That's one transmission. Ika diamri, anechirav habeis hashchita doiv. Atstadim idotzpe midi shori vilos. If he has the head of the animal vertical, or if he tips it over onto its nostrils, then the ashes will do what they have to do. And it's permitted. So we're not worried that the nostrils will block it out. But if he tips the head onto its side, then he's got to puncture the head. He's got to insert something into the skull in order to facilitate the removal of the dam. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Shnei Gidim Hein. There are two sinews that run through this. This was our introduction to the parak, if you happen to remember. Hapnimi samach lietzem asur v'chayav and oleh karis. So which of the two sinews is considered the Gid Anosha? Now we're going back to Gid Anosha again. So we went from Chelev to Dam, and now from Dam to Gid Anosha. It's only the Pnimi. Now, notice we have to put up on the big board that Shmuel identifies the Pnimi as the one that's close to the Etzem, not to the Basar. We're going to have a stira in a minute. Chitzon, which means that the sinew that's close to the flesh of the animal, the basar, is also vein chayov. In other words, it's only derabbanan. Back to Gemara, I have a contradiction. But Tanya, we have a brayse says pnimi samach lebasar. Why are you telling me that it's samach lietzem? It should be samach lebasar, and that messes us all up together and confuses us between the pnimi and the sinew. Omer of Kahana iklude miklad. When the Brisa speaks about the Pnimi, which is the real McCoy Gid Anosh with the Chiv Karis, as being close to the flesh, the second Brisa, that's because apparently magic here, the inner sinew passes through the thigh, and like a key in a lock, it inserts itself into the flesh. But it's really close to the bone. It's dafka the one that's not Gid Anosha, that's the one that's close to the bone. Rabbi Yehuda, Heicha de Pare Tabache. In other words, we have a different perspective from the perspective of the Tabchi, of the butcher. When he separates the thigh from the hip, then the outer sinew then looks like it's close to the bone. Itmar, tabach shenimtzach chelev acharav. What happens if we catch the butcher on a lie? And we see, now we're talking about on one occasion, that he markets the meat from his butcheria without removing the chelev. Rav Yehuda Amar kivisa ora. And Rabbi Yochanan B'Kizayis, how much chelev did we find? Was it a barley or an olive? What was its size? What's going on over here? Kan lal kos Rabbi Yochanan, when he talks about an olive size, he means we give malchus. Now, you can't take this literally because he didn't eat the chelev, he just marketed it. But he should get malchus for what's called lifnei evil osite michshel, for marketing meat that has chelev in it, which is going to be the entire subject of tomorrow's daf, Sadidal. But kan li abro, when we said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda that even a barley corn's volume is enough, that means that we have to remove him from his job. In other words, a tabach is a city municipal appointment, and he can only function as a butcher when he has that diploma, so to speak. And we're going to remove his diploma and disqualify him because he left out a barley corn's worth of chalev. In the case of Rabbi Yehuda removing his status as a butcher, it's got to be a barley corn in one, there's no integration in one place. But kizayis afilu b'shnayim. But when Rabbi Yochanan speaks about the fact that we give him malchus, it doesn't matter if he left chalev of a kizayis in one place or in the sachakol, in the totality of three places. Hilchas alal koso b'kizayis lavro b'kisora. Next, ein hatabach, the Mishnah says we don't trust the butchers to having removed the gid anoshe. It's too complicated to remove the gid anoshe. And that's the divrei Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir says that, if you recall, we had a few dap ago that Rabbi Meir requires that with regard to this sciatic nerve, you have to go all the way down to the root. Very complicated procedure, so we don't trust the butcher. Right? The Chacham say that we disagree with Rabbi Meir and we hold we trust them. What? In a later generation, they said that we can rely on the butcher. What, all of a sudden became tzaddikim? With the passage of generations, we became more, more strict and more credible. That doesn't make any sense. We always talk about Yeridas Ados. More answers, Meikara, Avisavi, look at Rabbi Meir. Originally, they paskin that Rabbi Meir is right, and we got to get rid of the gid anoshe both on top and on the bottom and go down to the roots. It is very complicated. And therefore, who could trust the butchers to implement such a process? L'basaf, we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda that the gid anoshe only has to be the surface of the gid anoshe. That's what's also the sciatic nerve on its surface, but not all the way down. It's not a complicated procedure, and therefore we could rely and trust the butchers. Ika demasile seifa. Chachamim omrim ne'monim olav v'al hachelev. We'll see what al hachelev is all about, but we trust them. Omer Rav Chia bar Abba chazru lomar ein ne'monim. Just the opposite. In a later generation, we wouldn't rely on them. But Omer Rav Nachman b'zman hazeh ne'monim, in our time we can rely on them, even though we stopped relying on them. Now in our day we can rely on them. Why the generations are now stricter? That can't be. Meikara savrua ki Rabbi Yehuda, Hada savrua ki Rabbi Meir. So it went through a process of A, B, and C. A, we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, and the butchers were believed. B, we retracted and we paskin like Rabbi Meir, and we can't trust the butchers. But C, we went back to the original psak, and kamadav yidikirala, the Rabbi Yehuda lo mehemne. V'hashta din shulei the Rabbi Yehuda memne. Fine. V'ala chelev, what's chelev doing here? Chelev ma'afshra, hachi kamar. Ein ne'monim olav v'ala chelev, v'acham omer ne'monim olav ala chelev. Okay, we'll just start the Mishnah, and then we'll wrap it up. Sholech adam yerech li'ovei kochavim shegid anoshim b'tocha. When a Jew sends meat, he sells meat. In those cities, there was mostly Jewish meat sellers. And he sells it to an idolater. And the idolater is a middleman. He's going to sell it now to a Jew. The Jew who buys it is going to assume that the gid anoshe was removed by the original Jew. And yet the Mishnah says it's mutter. Why? Because the purchaser will be able to identify whether the gid anoshe was removed. However, says the Mishnah, oh, wait a minute. No, this is the Gemara already. Just 1 second. Yeah, the Gemara says that chatucha, but if you want to buy from this idolater meat that's cut up, that you can't do. Because once it's cut up into small segments, pieces, you won't be able to identify whether the gid anoshe was removed or not removed. But again, this is all based on the fact that the Jew who purchased the meat from the idolater assumes, because most of the butchers in town are Jewish, that the Jewish butcher would have removed the Gid Anosha. So the Gemara says, "V'mayaskinon ilema b'makom she'em machrizin is then chatucha nami lishtele dolo asula mizvah mineh elo b'makom she'machrizin shlema nami lo l'shadole de chatuch le'mazabin." Okay, so that will leave for Shabbos. They had two minhagim. There was some minhagim where if they found, let's say the Jewish butcher found the animal to be a trefa or nevela, and he can't sell it to another Jew, he's going to sell it to an idol worshiper. But then the Jew is now going to buy it from the idol worshiper without knowing that it's an nevela trefa, and therefore there has to be an announcement in town that don't buy meat from the goyim because we found an nevela trefa. But the goyim are not going to be too happy when that announcement is made because their clientele are the Jews. So they want to sell the meat to the Jews. Okay, so that's the discussion for Yom HaShabbos.